to talk about some of the challenges that we are facing today. I know that this is difficult. I know that you are struggling. As you have heard me say, if you are a regular participant, if you are part of the family of the Shrine of Ma'at, something amazing happens when we gather together. And there is no better time to gather together than when you are in struggle, when you are seeking to find solace from the storm. And definitely, this period that we are in really is perhaps the best example of what that must look like. So I want to welcome you to Kemetic Ascension again for June 7, 2020. I'm hoping that you'll develop some additional psychological, spiritual, emotional resources from us gathering together, even though we are gathering entirely virtually. I'm hoping that you are there as well to gather these resources so you can do the work that our community, that our ancestors, and in fact the Netru expect for us to do. So I want to say dua to you. I want to say thanks to you. I'm so pleased that you are here. So, Anika, are we all good to go?
Yes, we are.
Wonderful. Can we first start off, I should ask this before we move forward. You know that when we actually go into Kemetic Ascension, I actually always say that we should start anything important with the ritual that marks our shrine. The ritual that was put into its current form by our shrine elder, Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Se Pata. That is the opening of the way. We'll do that in a moment. But before we go into the opening of the way, I want you to let us know that you are let us know that you are with us. I want you to tell us who you are and where you are, so that we know that our voice is not being stifled, so that we know that we are able to reach the masses of our people, those people who hear the call to African excellence that our ancestors put forward. I'm truly hoping that you'll let us know that you are with us on this Sunday, because I really want to know that you are here, we are gathering here, and we are about to do the work that our ancestors asked us to do. So please, let us know where you're at. Do we have any folks commenting, Anika?
Jehuti Ma'atra from Canada.
Wonderful. Ontario, Canada. Jehuti Ma'atra.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Latanya from Dallas. Tiki
Wonderful.
From South Carolina. We're Philly in the house.
Wonderful. I'm sure we have folks from all over the country, and in fact, probably some folks much further away in
Oakland,
the world.
California.
Oakland, California.
We have Brother Yasir from Chicago.
Brother Yasir, my brother from Chicago. How are you, my brother? I have owed you a phone call. If you only could imagine how challenging this period in the last few weeks has been for the Osaze family. Some of you know that I also lost my father 1 week ago today, and I had played a very important role, I think, in his continuing treatment for stage 4 renal cancer. So it's been a rough week. It has really been a rough week as I come before you. And so I'm pleased to hear that so many people are on, including my dear brother, Yasir Rahotep out of Chi-Town.
We have Nebraska.
Nebraska.
We have Maryland, Oklahoma.
Maryland, Oklahoma.
Manhattan, London, Georgia, Lawrenceville, Georgia, St. Louis, Missouri, Connecticut, our own Abut Sashat.
Abut Sashat is on. Abut Sashat, peace and Ankh Ma'at to you.
Our initiate, William Humphrey from Phoenix, Arizona.
Woo, William Humphrey.
We have Jersey in the house. San Francisco, Grenada.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. And you have a few condolences coming in.
Oh, dua.
Yasir says he understands.
Dua, yeah. Let me say to you that I'm pleased to be here with you. I think that just as therapeutic as gathering may be for you, it is also for us. So I'm pleased to be here with you. It's been a week. I don't know if I could have done this last week as easily, but I truly thank you for your condolences, and I'm glad that we're together. So, you know that we begin Kemetic Ascension with the ritual that marks our shrine, the ritual entitled The Opening of the Way. Please stand as we do the opening of the way. Are you coming forward?
Yes.
She's nestled in there with all the technology. So you know that what we will do is we will stand in a position of adoration. You'll have your left foot forward, your right foot back. You're also going to have your right hand, your both palms exposed in front of you. Your right hand forward, your left hand forward, and your right hand back. And you might even want to have your right hand a little lower than your left hand. And just understand that's because in Kemetic philosophy, the left is what gives, the right is what receives. And so you are giving and receiving divine energy. So let us take our deep breath and chant the sound of everlasting life. Ankh.
Anetrak in Bethet.
Anetrak in Bethet.
Nuke in Bethet.
Nuke in Bethet.
Anetrak Hapi.
Anetrak Hapi.
Nuke Hapi.
Nuke Hapi.
Twa Winter.
Twa Winter.
Anetrak Serket.
Anetrak Serket.
Nuke Serket.
Nuke Serket.
Anetrak Kepsanu.
Anetrak Kebsanu.
Nuke Kepsanu.
Nuke Kebsanu.
Twa Winter.
Twa Winter.
Anetrak Ast.
Anetrak Ast.
Nuke Ast.
Nuke Ast.
Anetrak Amset.
Anetrak Amset.
Nuke Amset.
Nuke Amset.
Twa Winter.
Twa Winter.
Anetrak Neat.
Anetrak Neat.
Nuke Neat.
Nuke Neat.
Anetrak Dwamutef.
Anetrak Dwamutef.
Nuke Dwamutef.
Nuke Dwamutef.
Twa Winter.
Twa Winter.
Anetrak Newt.
Anetrak Newt.
Nuke Newt.
Nuke Newt.
Anetrak Geb.
Anetrak Geb.
Nuke Geb.
Nuke Geb.
Twa Winter.
Twa Winter. You've been doing it all. Anetrak Shu. 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 Nuke Shu.
Anetrak Tefnut.
Anetrak Tefnut.
Tefnut.
Tefnut. Tefnut. Tefnut. Nuke Tefnut. Twa Winter.
Anetrak
Paut in Teru.
Nuke
Paut in Teru. Anetrak and Boo in Teru. Nuke and Boo in Teru. Twa Winter. Twa Winter. Dwa, 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 dwa. Dwa, dwa. I'm hoping that you were doing the opening of the way with us. This is not theater. This is not your movie. This is something for you to do. And I'm hoping that you are doing the opening of the way whenever you are about to do something important. Whenever you need to galvanize divine energy so that you are able to conduct those procedures, to do those actions that you know our ancestors expected for us to do. And I always say that as you do the opening of the way, before anything important, certainly your day is important. And so you should do the opening of the way at least at the beginning of every day. Now, what do I mean when I say do the opening of the way before every day? I'm truly saying that when you rise, you should do it. I know that when we began our initiation in the Shrine of Ptah Anika, we did the opening of the way at 4 a.m. Mm-hmm. That's when we had to get up to do the opening of the way. And so it is really important that you rise to do that. The opening of the way is a ceremony that absolutely recognizes just how powerful you are. It recognizes that you are the universe, that the divine source of the universe is you. And so that there is nothing that can prevent you from doing that which you have been divinely ordained to do. So I hope that you're doing the opening of the way. I hope that you're using it to galvanize divine energy so that you are able to truly be you. Dua, dua, dua. So, it's been a rough week. Anika and I decided that we would try to do a Hesi that is a bit different today. We recognize that so many of us are struggling for Ma'at, struggling for justice, fighting against the continued murder of black people, the continued destruction of black men and women. And we decided that what we would try to do is a Hesi that would have us draw that divine warrior energy together, the divine righteous energy to fight injustice. So we sort of we created a Hesi that we believe draws that power. Now, a few words before you hear all of the Hesi. You should know by now, we are the Shrine of Ma'at, and Ma'at is really described or personified as a beautiful woman with a feather on her head. She is the very order of the universe. She is the symbol of righteousness, justice, balance, reciprocity, truth, order, balance. She is a very, very important description and invocation of the divine. And so you're going to hear us chanting Ma'at, but you should know that the opposite of Ma'at, the absence of Ma'at, has a name in the Kemetic language as well. I want to know if you know what that name is. Before I tell you, let's see you type that. Let's hear if you know what the absence of Ma'at is called. Understand that when we talk about the absence of Ma'at, it's similar to what people in the Abrahamic traditions would have called sin. So what is the allegory to sin in the Kemetic tradition? What's the word that we use? So we're going to mention that term. In addition to that, you're going to hear us call forward one of the divine energies of sacred battle. And that divine energy is called Mentu or Mantu. You might have heard of Mentu Hotep, a powerful ruler that reunites Kemet. And so when he says that his name is Mentu Hotep, he's saying that the divine warrior image of sacred battle, Mentu, is at peace. Or that maybe you could even say that his life is an offering to Mentu. And so you're going to hear us mention Mentu the Great. You're going to hear that too. So how many folks have told us what the word for the absence of Ma'at is, Anika?
So Jason Holmes, Leslie Jackson, Amun Seti Nu, Jamar Milton have all said Isfet.
Isfet. And let me say that for those of you who are relatively new, you might say, well, how do they all know that? All of the people, virtually all of the people that you mentioned are either initiates or priests of the Shrine of Ma'at. I hear Jamar Milton is on Ankan Ma'at to Abu Jamar, who is one of the priests of the Shrine of Ma'at. So definitely, they should know what the word is. Isfet, which is usually spelled in English I-S-F-E-T. Isfet is that which must be crushed under your feet as you move forward in Ma'at. And so you're going to hear us use these words. Another word that you're going to hear is Seruj. Seruj means to restore. So sometimes you'll hear us say Seruj Ma'at, restore Ma'at. Ma'at is one of those things that comes in and out of balance, and our everlasting quest must be always to put Ma'at back into balance. So you're going to hear the phrase Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. So, Anika, you want to give us our Hesi for today?
So today's Hesi is Wehen Isfet Mentu A, and the refrain is Seruj Ma'at.
But it's Wehen Isfet.
Wehen
Isfet.
Mentu A.
Mentu A. Mm-hmm. And Mentu is once again the divine warrior energy. And the word ah means great. So we're saying crush Isfet, great Mentu. And then we are saying seruj ma'at. Seruj ma'at is restore ma'at. Because when we crush or dispel Isfet, we are bringing ma'at back into balance. Now understand, in this instance, you can even particularly think of ma'at as justice. She is the lady of the scales. In fact, when you look at the judgment scene, you'll actually see that sometimes she is the scales herself. She carries the scales. She is the lady of justice and order. So when we say Seruj Ma'at, we are asking for Ma'at. We are asking for justice for the lives of black and brown people that have been crushed under the black boot of tyranny, under the state-sponsored terrorists who continue to kill black people. We are saying that as we think of the names of Brianna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and Eric Gardner and Tamir Rice and Sandra Bland, and you could go on and on and on and on and on. Recognize that we are saying that we must seruj ma'at by crushing Isfet. This particular Hesi is an action Hesi. This Hesi is invoking the warrior within you to do that which is right, to do that which is just, to call forward our mother Ma'at by calling Mentu, the warrior, forward. And so I want you to hear the Hesi, I want you to speak the Hesi, and I want us to utilize the Hesi whenever we are trying to put the world back into balance. As we know, so often, black and brown people, particularly black people, have continued to be killed at the hands of police. And not even just the police. Not even just the police. Think about Trayvon Martin. Think about Ahmaud Arbery. Think about those people who have been killed by people who think that they should deputize themselves because of course, they think that we are still living in the time of the Dred Scott case, where there are no rights this is exactly what Justice Taney, the Supreme Court justice, said in the case of Dred Scott. He actually said there were no rights that there are no rights that the Negro has that a white man should have respect for. I'm paraphrasing. So they think that simply because they're white, they should be able to tell us what to do. Black folk have been living in tyranny, and it's so interesting that just a few weeks ago, we saw Tom Who individuals running towards state houses without masks and armed weapons, some of them assault rifles, going to argue because they want to be able to get a haircut. Because they didn't want for the government to say that they should stay in their homes. By the way, not force them in their homes with arms, not tell them they couldn't go outside for a walk or go to the grocery store, but just because businesses were closed during a pandemic. They said this was not freedom, when we can juxtapose this with the literal murder of black people that has continued unabated for hundreds of years. So we must Wehen, by the way, I didn't say what Wehen means. Wehen means to destroy. So when we say Wehen Isfet, we're saying destroy in Isfet great Mentu and Seruj Ma'at. That is the Hesi that we are creating. So Anika, can you please give us the beat? Come on now. Tell us what it should sound like.
Okay. Wehen Isfet. Wehen Isfet. Wehen Isfet.
Seru You've heard it now. I want you to do it with us. Remember, this is not theater. Kemetic Ascension is for us to join together. So the words are Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. We do that 4 times, right? And then after the 4th time, we go into Seruj Ma'at. And Seruj Ma'at we do 4 times as well. Make sense? I hope you're with me. Okay. Let's go. Let's start.
Okay.
Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. Seruj Ma'at. So, I'm hoping that draws energy. I'm hoping that you feel the warrior energy in that particular Hesi. It's interesting. Sometimes, Anika, I feel like we should be using maybe 3 or 4 Hesi and that's it. But you know what happens? Something happens during the week. And we actually feel that we should create Hesi that speaks to, that draws the energy, that allows us to crystallize our divine power towards a particular aim. And so that's why we end up creating new ones. So remember, this one is Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. You say that 4 times, and then you say Seruj Ma'at. That's Seruj Ma'at. So I'm hoping that you were with us. How many of you are going to use this in your day? How many of you tried to do this with us? I'm hoping that you are doing that. So let us know, type in, let us know that you're with us. Let us know that you know what the words are. Anika, I'm not sure, did you actually type the words so they can see? So that I'm assuming that all of you have the words. It's one of those things that challenges your breath, by the way, right? Because there is no sort of rest. It just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. It's in some way a war chant, I would say. It's a war chant, and I want us to recognize that in the Kemetic philosophy, divine war is certainly something that is expected. On the front of New Kingdom temples, sometimes you would actually see images of the Nisut, of the king, dispelling Isfet, smashing it in the head with a rock. So this is, when we say that we are doing something that is sacred, please don't get it twisted. That does not mean that we can't go into divine battle. Our ancestors expected it. And I'm truly hoping that you are going to use these Hesses and the others that we've created in order for you to galvanize that divine energy, in order for you to allow your personal frequency to, in many ways, be in congruence, be in harmony with the frequency of the universe, at least that frequency that is needed at that moment. And so I truly hope that you're going to continue to use these. I hope that you're writing them down. I hope that you have them described. Did anyone say they were doing it with us and they're going to use it?
A lot of people. One said she did it with her daughter, Lorraine David. Jehuti messes with us.
Uncle Ma'at Jehuti mess.
Latanya, Kali, Sylvia, Gaston is with us.
Wonderful.
Candace.
Wonderful.
Strong-minded black man 7 is learning. Amun Seti News said he definitely will do it.
Wonderful.
Camp L did it.
Wonderful.
Bolanji.
Wonderful.
A lot of
Wonderful.
people in the room.
You said Icon L?
No, not Icon L.
Oh, I haven't seen that brother in a while. I was going to say, what's up?
Leslie Jackson.
Yes.
Abut Wasseret.
Abut Wasseret, who is one of the priestesses of the Shrine of Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at to you. Ankin Ma'at, beloved.
One of your new students, Charity, is in the house.
Yes, wonderful. One of the students in the history course that we're teaching.
Lisa Attaway. We have a lot of our people here today.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm hoping that you are feeling comfortable to actually utilize this because you are a divine entity. The Kemetic tradition is not one that argues that you have to beg for forgiveness from an entity outside of you, that you have to beg for mercy from an entity outside of you, that this mercy has your life in their hands and that you have to do those things and they are watching you. The Kemetic tradition is different. The Kemetic tradition argues that you are the divine entity and that particularly all of us together, that the divine is all and that we are the divine, so that you have responsibility. And so when we do these Hessi, we are absolutely asking for a particular aspect of the divine all that is within you to come forward. It's almost the same thing that we do when we do the opening of it and we say Anecharak. Anecharak means show me your face. The way I look at it is, you have all these divine entities, this divine energy that makes up the all, but when you call forward a particular energy, think about that face sort of bubbling forward from a divine ocean, coming to the surface because that particular energy, that particular energetical harmonic entity, that particular frequency is being called forward to do work. You know that the Kemetic tradition uses many different names for divine entities. That's not because we believe that, as some people have argued, we believe in many gods. It actually means that we believe that the divine energy is all things, and that what if you need a particular aspect, a particular coalescence of that energy to come forward to do work, you can call the name of that energy and it will align in a particular way. And so that is why we say that you must destroy Isfet. You ain't waiting for nobody to do it for you. You must get in there and do it yourself. You have to. That is why we say, Wehen Isfet Mentu Ah. And then we say Seruj Ma'at, because you must be restoring Ma'at. It is your responsibility, Kemetic. It is your responsibility to come forward and do the work. And so I'm so pleased that you were doing it with us. I'm so pleased that you're going to use that. And I'm truly hoping that this moment will be another moment in our history that we will say we have pushed forward the story of people of African descent, that we have pushed forward the narrative that has come forward over the last period of time, over these last 400 or 500 years, where African people have been fighting for more than equality, but to be recognized as full human beings and to be given all of those rights and responsibilities that human beings are should expect to be afforded to them, so that we can do what we want to do and we will not be under the foot of racist power. And so we are continuing to struggle. I know that so many of you are probably in those streets. Let's talk a bit about this today as we go into the word for the Sebayit.
Just so you know, we have Ghana in the house.
Oh, Ghana's in the house. Anika and I have been pining for Ghana, boy. We keep saying, man, we wish we could be back in Ghana right now. And I don't know when we're going to be able to travel again. By the way, my passport is about to expire, and I cannot even renew it because the passport centers are closed. So it's going to be a little while that we're on lockdown, especially when we're talking about traveling internationally. So we definitely need to figure out how we're going to do that again. Please, peace to Ghana, peace to Ghana. We can't wait to get back there.
So that Adrian is asking when they can come back in-house.
You know, it's going to be a little while. You know, we don't have the largest space, so it's a little hard for us to be able to socially distance. We might actually try, as the weather is warmer, to try to do a few things outside where we can be in distance. But these are things that we're going to need to really talk about over the next period. And of course, Sinet Adrian, as one of the initiates of the Shrine of Ma'at, you're going to have a role in talking about that, right? So we'll definitely be talking about that. Our space is small, so it would be difficult for us to be able to do that in here. But definitely maybe we can do that outside. So, oh, I went all the way forward. How did I do that? Here we go. Okay. So, today I want to talk about the word from the Sebayit. You know that this is the section where we pull forward particular portions of our sacred literature to guide us in the modern era. And I'd be remiss if I didn't try to find sections of our literature that speak to the moment, the particular moment that we're in. The period where we're in where so much of us are focused on attempting to truly push back against racist power. There have been literally millions of people in the street worldwide. Worldwide, really. When I looked at, for example, some of the protests in France, the protests in Germany, the protests all over the world, they were amazingly large. And my understanding is that there have been protests in 380 cities in the United States. That number is just mind-boggling. And people have continued to go out. They were not abated by the arrest of 4 officers who killed our dear brother, may he live forever, George Floyd. Because they have said this is not just about arrests, it's about conviction, it's not just about George Floyd, it's about Ahmaud Arbery, it's about Brianna Taylor, it's about a system that continues to kill black people. And so this is powerful. This is truly powerful. And I think that so many of our systems, our political structures are going to have to respond because people are in the street. People are in the street. So let's talk a bit about what I've called the crime of being black. And you might know that about 2 years ago, I actually did a version of this talk, of this reflection on the Sebayit. And I want to revisit it today based on what is happening now. I want to talk about what our Kemetic texts tell us we should be doing in this moment. And so I hope you remember this particular situation. Do you remember this woman, this tomboy woman, Teresa Klein, who called the police because she said a black child in a supermarket touched her butt? Do you remember this? today, I guess we would call, I think she was called Corner Store Caroline is what people were calling her. And today we're calling these Tomboy women Karens often. By the way, that's really rough for people of African descent. Women of African descent that might actually have the name Karen. Like, why are they using my name? But recognize that this is not something that is unusual, that we could draw a straight line from those individuals that are calling the police on black people who are doing nothing but living the actual killing of black people. So you remember that this happened on in October of 2018, and in Brooklyn, right, not far from where we live, and it is really, really, really disturbing. So I want you to take a look at this. Let's see if you remember this particular situation.
White man, the console of black man. I get it. Yeah, they're videotaping. Yeah. So, kids, listen, you remember me, right? From school, right? That's right. The son grabbed my ass. And she decided to yell at me. I'm gonna stay right here. Security cameras. No, don't stay nowhere.
Let's make it go viral.
No.
No, not her.
No.
Come on. She's calling police on a black woman.
She needs to go home. I'm doing this. This one's stupid. Yeah.
What's that, bro? Like, there you go.
There are officers down the block that want
Corner Store Carolyn. That's what I did. Don't cry, little man. Don't cry, little man. Because she's calling the cop. That's Corner Store Carolyn. What y'all doing? Corner Store Carolyn. Look at that. She calling police.
Come on. Nobody want to touch your flat ass.
Somebody, she called the police.
I just was sexually assaulted by a child.
They gonna go viral.
She's nasty.
They gonna go viral.
You're a pedophile. You're a pedophile. You're a pedophile.
Call the police.
This is a
The little
pedophile.
kid bust their
You're a
ass.
pedophile. Go home. Let me go home. You're a pedophile. You pedophile. Stop. He said that little boy touched his ass.
So I want you to understand what you're seeing here. What you're seeing is a white woman who claims that a child touched her, and she's calling the police. By the way, notice how loud she's speaking. She's speaking that loudly because in some ways she's not even really calling the police. What she's doing is she's using white racist terror on black people. She's aware of how our relationship with the police has been a brutal one. She knows that police have been preying upon black people. She knows that we have concerns about being anywhere near the police because of that racist history, a history that goes back all the way to slave patrols during enslavement. And so she's yelling this because she's trying to terrify the people around her. This is more than calling the police. It's reminding people that as a Tomboy, she has the right to kill them using state power. That she has the right to terrify them by simply speaking those dreaded words, "I'm calling the police." That's what she's doing. And think about her vile words. I mean, even if she believed that she was touched, she says to the police, "A child touched my ass." Can you imagine her saying that? Saying that she was sexually assaulted by a child? By the way, did you notice that young man crying? I want you to ask yourself for a second. Just think about this. How many children of different ethnicities, of different racial groups in the country would have had that response? If he was a Tomboy child, a child of European descent, and someone said that, he might say, "Well, the police are coming. I wonder what that means." Am I in trouble? Did I do something? But did you see how this young man immediately started to cry? Because even as a child, he knows about the relationship that the police have had with people of African descent. I think I was around 5 or 6 years old, speaking to my mother. I told her at school that they were telling me, by the way, a police officer had come to visit my school, and they had told me, when you're in trouble, call 911. And my mother was really focused on my education. Really focused. And I remember her stopping me as I talked about what happened in school. And she stopped me so abruptly that I remember something was different this day. And she actually said, if something is wrong, don't go to a police officer. And I remember thinking, wait, that's different than what I was just told by my teacher. I think this is the first time that my mother ever contradicted the teacher. Of course, she, as a woman of African descent, she would need to do this many times in my life. But this was very early. I remember this was different. What did she say? She said something very creative, by the way, that I want you to hear. She said, if you get lost or something is wrong, look for another mother like me. That's what she said. She said, look for another mother like me and tell her that you're lost. Tell her that something is wrong. I'll never forget that day, sitting at our kitchen table, over 40 years ago. I remember that like it was yesterday. These are the sorts of conversations that black parents have to have with their children. I just spoke to a sister the other day who had a young boy, and she said to her friend that she was hopped up, right? She still had a lot of anesthesia in her. And she said to her friend, after looking at her son, before she held her son, before she nursed her son, before she nuzzled her son, she said to her friend who was in the delivery room, well, damn, I guess we got to get him out of here. And her friend said, what do you mean? She said, out of the country, and they laughed. Can you imagine that's the first thought you think of when you see your beautiful baby boy? Knowing that his life, which has just begun by just a few moments, just a few seconds, just a few minutes, is in jeopardy. That's the situation that we're in. That's the situation that we're in. And so I want you to recognize that this woman, she actually said on the phone call that there was actually videotape. You want to see the videotape that she's referring to? She actually sees the videotape later as well. Take a look at the video. She believes it is going to show a child molesting her because there's something wrong in her brain. And white privilege, white racist privilege, allows her to think something so dastardly, and even to think that she is going to terrorize this child and his family, and in fact all the other black people around, by threatening to call the police. Take a look at what the store video actually showed happened. So here goes corner store Caroline walking through, reaching over the counter. Look at the boy. His large book bag brushes by her. And she starts being rude immediately to the family. Look at all the rest of the black people like, what? A child touched your butt? Are you crazy? First they think it's funny. Look at them, they're like, this didn't happen. And then she starts moving sexually and inappropriately to a child. This is the mother saying, how dare you? By the way, you notice it took a while for the mom to get angry. Now she's arguing. This is what happened. And she thought the most appropriate thing for her to do would be to terrify a child, to terrify all the her black neighbors. Let's be clear about what's happening here. And here she is showing her the phone saying, I'm calling the police. This is terrorism. That's what's happening. And I'm going to tell you, even though nothing happened to this boy, even though this family was vindicated by the video, you had better understand that he has been marked by this moment. That's what happened. By the way, here's the store owner trying to just separate them. He's as confused can be. Maybe it's because he's an Arab guy. I think he's a Yemenite from another country. He's like, what is happening here? He's just trying to keep them apart. But everybody else knows what's happening. Cornerstone Carolyn knows that she is using racist terror, that she is calling the names of state-sponsored terror on this community and visiting it upon a child. That's what she sees. And this is not unusual. Take a look at all of these cases. Now listen. Most of these are situations that I described in this particular word from the Sayyid from over 2 years ago. That's what that is. Most of it is. But you should understand that I could have actually listed literally dozens upon dozens of these. Are you struggling with the camera? Do you need me to do something?
Yes.
Yes? Mm-hmm. Folks, you know that we say at the end that we don't do this for money, but we need money to do it. We literally have a camera that is being held up. We bought a new tripod, and it's still not quite working the way that it should. And so we're trying to make sure that the image continues to be as clear as it needs to be for us to be able to be in our dialogue. I don't know how you tied this here. Give us a moment. You can't hold it all day, honey. So what are you going to do?
Okay, it's fine.
Now let's continue to move. She's shooing me away even though she can't hold it for the rest of Kemetic Ascension.
Just go.
So what are you going to do?
Just go.
Anyway, understand that we are doing our best to be able to bring you Kemetic Ascension. And sometimes it's a challenge. So I want you to take a look at these images here. Take a look at them.
Slide.
You sure?
Yes.
You should. Anyway, take a look at this and you'll see. You have one that's similar to it. It may not have this piece here. So take a look at this. You'll actually see that in 2018, you'll see that hundreds in Oakland turned out because a woman called the police on black men who were actually having a barbecue in Oakland, California. By the way, she's calling the police on them, and it was proven that they were barbecuing in the right area. I don't know why she thought she should call upon herself to call the police, because she questions whether they should be able to gather in public and have a barbecue. You'll even see on the BBC News in Atlanta, a man who was babysitting two children, he's their nanny, actually had the police called on them. She actually went past the man to ask because she saw a black man with two Tamhu children. By the way, he wasn't just driving with them, he was taking them home. And so she asked the children if they were okay. Of course the children were like, of course we're okay. We know this man. And she still called the police on them. So this was called babysitting while black. This took place 2 years ago as well. And then you also see that these black children here were mowing the lawn of a particular woman, another person of African descent, and you're making a little money mowing lawns, and at the same time, a neighbor calls the police on them. And so the police have to come for this as well. And of course, you know what happened earlier this year when a woman, Anna Cooper, I think her name was, actually was calling the police on a black man, and this is so interesting, who was birding in Central Park. How many black people you know are birding in Central Park? And he had actually said that the area that she was in was an area where she had to have her dog on a leash. And instead of having her dog on a leash, she decided, don't tie it to the microphone. She decided that what she's doing is that what she was doing was dangerous, because you're not supposed to have your dogs off the leash in this section of the park. And so this is a major issue, and it needs to be resolved. This is the situation that we're in. His name was Christian Cooper, and this woman fakes tears. She actually says that I'm going to tell them that an African American man is threatening my life simply because he is suggesting that she put her dog on a leash. It's amazing that these sorts of things are happening. And well, I don't even know why I'm saying it's amazing. It's not actually amazing. This is the kind of thing that we've become, unfortunately, used to seeing. But it's amazing when we have video of it. Let's put it that way. Now, I want you to take a quick look at the video of the woman who's talking about the children who are mowing the lawn. So you get a sense of how pervasive this is, how painful this is. Did I leave the remote over there? Take a look.
So I came on here earlier to say how the young people came, and was cutting my grass, to stay off the street. So you see the police car right there. My neighbors that stay in that house right there. So I guess I have like a line where part of it is not my yard. They called the police to tell the police that the kids was cutting their grass. Who does that? Who does that? They called the police for everything. They called the police because my kids was throwing snowballs. They called the police because my child was crying because he was getting a whipping. Who does that? I'm not moving unless I want to move. Who calls the police for everything? They should be glad these kids not out here breaking their car windows out. They should be glad the kids not out here stealing their cars. You called the police because the kids is out here cutting the grass, and they cut the grass that wasn't a part of our grass. I don't know what part is my grass and what part is your grass. He back to talking to the police. That's the police car. Who does that, Jackie? Who calls the police because kids that's between the ages of, how old are you, baby?
9.
He's 9 years old. They are walking around, cutting grass. It's 2 young men and 2 young ladies. After this 9-year-old just got killed, like, love out loud, baby.
I knew her too.
You knew her because you went to school with her, didn't you? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm so glad you out here doing something positive. You should not be getting the police called on you because you out here cutting grass. Yes, I'm going live because I'm so angry right now.
I want you to look at his face. He looks extremely uncomfortable because he's learning a painful lesson, one that no child should have to learn. The lesson is, when you are a person of African descent and you're just living, you may even be doing something productive. Being black is what the crime is. He's learning a painful lesson and still dealing with trauma. Did you notice that he heard very clearly that he knew the other 9-year-old girl that had been killed? He said, I knew her too. What kind of world are our children growing up in? This has continued for hundreds of years, and we must put an end to it. And of course, when you hear the situation of our children are in, this child was one of the children was 12. That one that you saw there is 9. You can't help but think about Tamir Rice. A little boy that was playing with a toy gun. And as he was playing with the toy gun in Cleveland, the police got a call saying that a boy was menacing with a gun. When they arrived to the scene, instead of doing any sort of investigation to figure out what's happening, what they decided to do was to open fire within 2 seconds. The car that they were in was still moving when they were shooting. And they killed this 12-year-old. And no one was held accountable for it. No one. That's the situation that we're in. That's the situation that we're in. We must continue to say the name of Tamir Rice. We must. And of course, Tamir Rice brings us to the common day, the modern day, our period now where we are still grieving and fighting because of the loss of Ahmaud Arbery, a man who had the nerve to do something as healthy as going for a jog in Glenn County, Georgia. And three Tom who thought that they were going to deputize themselves and absolutely go to follow him in a pickup truck with weapons, and they killed him. By the way, it was just announced, it was just reported this week that one of the investigators says that another one of those men mentioned that one of the men chasing him had routinely used racist language when talking about black people, and had used racist language when referring to Ahmaud Arbery. As if we didn't know in our community that this was about race. Now the reporting has confirmed that for other people, because it didn't have to confirm it for us. We look on the right at young Brianna Taylor, who was doing nothing but living in her own home. Brianna Taylor, who was a first responder. Brianna Taylor, who was an essential worker during a pandemic. An EMT in Louisville, Kentucky, who was in her home when she and her boyfriend heard someone break in. It's pretty clear that they did not announce what they were doing. By the way, why in the world should they be able to break into someone's home that way? And her boyfriend, who was a legal licensed gun owner, shot a police officer in the leg. Now, can you imagine he had the humanity to try to stop someone by shooting them in the leg, but they didn't have the basic humanity to actually try to do the same if they thought something was wrong? They knew very well what they were doing. And they shot her heart out. Shot 6 times. This is the situation we're in. And I must say that we must remember the names of our sisters who have been killed. We can't make this seem like it's only about men. We know that men are the primary target, but right next, running a close second, is our women of African descent, who are victims of rape, victims of murder, victims of abuse. We have to remember and continue to say the name for Brianna Taylor. Make offering to her as she makes her journey on the boat of Ra. And then, of course, we lead to the killing that I think that we should call the camel the straw that broke the camel's back. Because we have video, very clear video of George Floyd saying the same thing that Eric Gardner said 5 years ago here in Staten Island. I can't breathe, as the police continue to snuff his life out. That is what we saw. That is what we saw. And we know that there are those white racist apologists who are trying to excuse the murder of a man who did nothing. First they said that his underlying conditions caused his death. Then the video came out. Then they said that the police did nothing to cause his death. We saw another video. Then they said he was resisting arrest, and another video came out. We've even seen some people in New York, as the corrections officer union is having elections, we even see some people making memes of white corrections officers standing on the neck of the black president of the Correction Officers Union. That was also reported this weekend. We see the continuing callousness and outright inhumane racist beliefs of Europeans, of the Tom who. And of course, when they get called on it, usually what they do is they say, "I'm so sorry, I apologize." Now you want to apologize? is what we continue to see. And we can even talk about how, as so many people are in the streets, that the police, who are absolutely supposed to be protecting everyone in these overwhelmingly peaceful protests, are actually, and the protests are about racist police brutality and police murder, state-sanctioned terror. And what are they doing? They're actually beating people in the street for no reason. And we could go on and on and on. How about the 75-year-old Buffalo man who approached the police? By the way, I think he approached the police because he's a tomboy. He didn't realize that that was dangerous. And they shoved him to the ground, hearing his skull crack against the pavement. And blood began to immediately pour from his ear. How about the sister who was on her knees in protest with her hands raised, and a police officer pushes her to the ground? Now, thankfully, a African-American woman who was an officer that outranked him came forward and chastised him. How about how many protesters have had the police, while they're arresting them, still put their knees on their neck? How about the protester in New York just yesterday when the police were telling them to move and he has his hands raised? They pulled down his mask and sprayed pepper spray in his face. How about the car, the New York City police car that drove through protesters? And how about the white racist in the South that decided he was going to take his bow and arrow out and shoot at protesters? This moment is laying bare what kind of country we are living in. Not that black people needed clarification. But unfortunately, what we are seeing now in the era of cell phone videos is that we can absolutely prove what they have been doing to the world. Before Jabari Osaze had gray in his beard, I'm going to tell you, I remember shutting down the Brooklyn Bridge years ago in protest. This was in the 1980s, in the late 1980s. Marching on Brooklyn Bridge and shutting it down. I remember that when we used to march, we would have to have flyers with us to hand out to people, because the overwhelming majority of people, even our people, had not heard of the cases that we were marching about. Well, this is a new era. A new era that you could almost say that the beating of Rodney King has ushered in, because now we have video. Now we have video. How many times have we seen people murdered by the police? And the majority of the times, nothing happens. How about the murder of Walter Scott? At least in that one, the police officer was convicted. That's very rare. How about the killing of Falando Castile? No one was brought to justice. No one was brought to justice, as they murdered him in his car as he told them he was a legal gun owner. A licensed and permitted gun owner. They killed him in front of his girlfriend and her daughter. I've talked about Eric Gardner, who was doing nothing. By all descriptions of people who were on the scene, he broke up a fight. And the police tried to say that they were arresting him for selling loose cigarettes. By the way, he probably wasn't doing it then. But even if he was selling loose cigarettes at the moment, should it be worth his life? This callous indifference towards black lives is what has forced people to say Black Lives Matter, and racists to argue, well, all lives matter. You know very well that the term Black Lives Matter is aspirational, because this system has proven time and time and time again that they don't believe that the lives of our sisters and brothers, mothers and fathers, grandmothers matter a bit, as they continue to choke us out, to shoot us, to kill us. If it were not for the fact that we are in the era of cell phone video, that everyone has an HD video camera in their pocket, we would not know what actually had been occurring. So many of these names would go unreported. Just ask yourselves how many of those names you remember from the 90s and the 80s. You remember very few of them, because there were no videos when Jabari was a young activist marching for Eleanor Bumpers and others. But we're in a different time. In fact, that's probably why so many of the protesters are actually not people of African descent. Because now all of a sudden, as they can see the video, they are saying, wait a minute, is this what was always happening? They are the ones that needed confirmation that white racist state power was terrorizing and murdering black people. They were the ones that needed confirmation of this. Well, I'm going to say to you that so many of those people that are in the streets have acted as elements, as advocates, as vessels of Ma'at. And I'm hoping that you are doing so as well. So often I believe that people in the conscious community, in the African-centered community, who are well aware of these things, we don't always go out in the streets to protest. I am calling us, Kemetic, to get involved. It is actually in our tradition to do this. The very image of justice was one that we brought into existence. Listen to what Ptahhotep says about justice, about Ma'at. He says, and this is from the Maxims of Ptahhotep, he says, Ma'at is good and worth is lasting, and its worth is lasting. It has not been disturbed since the day of its creator, whereas he who transgresses its ordinances is punished. It lies as a path in front even of him who knows nothing. In fact, saying that you know nothing means nothing. That doesn't mean that you are not going to be punished for transgressing against Ma'at. Very interesting. Wrongdoing has never yet brought its venture to port. It is true that evil may gain wealth, but the strength of truth is that it lasts. A man can say, it was the property of my father. Doesn't this sound like what Martin Luther King said? That the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice? Ptahhotep was saying that thousands of years before Martin Luther King. That we should not actually be daunted. We should not be disturbed. We should not be turned away because it looks like those people who have practiced Isfet are winning. He says, yes, wrongdoing, evil may gain wealth, but that Ma'at is that what lasts. And that it is the property of our foreparents. Well, family, please don't be overly don't be overly symbolic here. When we say Ma'at, we're also talking about justice and order and right doing. We, as those people who are practitioners of Ma'at, must get involved in movements for justice. Get out there. Get out there. Anika and I have marched with Black Lives Matter and other movements. Well, you should know that when I met her, we were both activists. And so we've been marching for the last 30 plus years. Well, she's a little younger, so she's going to pretend that she's been doing it for shorter periods of time. She ain't that much younger. We have been marching for literally decades. And not just marching, working in our community, educating our people, talking about the things that we should do to actually make sure that our community has the resources, has the ability to choose for itself. It's not just marching, but you had better get out there and disrupt. Be careful and try to be healthy and whole while you do it, but disrupt things, because this system is not based on Ma'at. It is based in Isfet. And that we must tear it down. We, the practitioners, we, the vessels of Ma'at, must tear it down. It is of criminal importance. I want you to take a look at this 5-step proposal that I am putting forward, that I am suggesting we should do. It says here in my proposal, balance the truth of the criminal justice system's focus on people of African descent with finding ways for kids to be kids. What am I saying here? We continue to see that children are not able to truly enjoy their childhood because they still have white racist terror placed upon them. Did you see the young man standing there trying to understand why cutting someone's lawn with their permission was a problem? Did you see the young boy crying outside of the corner store when corner store Carolyn was calling the police on them? We have to make sure that we talk to our kids about this system so that they are keeping themselves safe, but we also have to find ways for them to be able to enjoy their childhood. This is very difficult. This is a problem that no one else has other than black parents. But it is of critical importance for us to do that. Be sure to develop emotional, spiritual, psychological self-care plans. This stuff can be hard on us. There are some people in public health who are beginning to try to calculate the toll that racism plays on black bodies. I know we like to say black don't crack, and it is likely true that melanin does wonders for skin, but the reality is a black adult is probably older than their white counterpart, than their Tomhu counterpart, because they have the burden of the racist system on their back from the time that they're born to the time that they die. And so we need to make sure that we are helping people develop emotional, spiritual, and psychological self-care plans. Number 3, become involved with movements for justice. You are a vessel of Ma'at. I've talked about this one. Number 4, a corrective history of Africans is critical, particularly prior to enslavement. It is critically important for us to recognize who we are and what we have done, because the system that we have been forced to live in continues to devalue us, continues to argue that we don't deserve those basic things that all human beings deserve. And we must make sure, we must continue to fight. We must continue to tell the story of what it is to be an African, so that we are able to have a corrective understanding of who we are and what our meaning towards human civilization actually is. And then finally, Kemetic shrines must be public spaces for dialogue about more than just spirituality. We have to talk about more than spirituality. We have to become involved in movements for Ma'at, because that is our standard. That high, ethical, moral, divine standard of justice is our guide. And so we should be involved in it. Kemetic, I am begging you to be involved. And I'm also begging you to protect our kids. And I'm also begging you to try to keep yourself whole in this difficult period. I'm hoping that you will feel comfortable utilizing some of the things that we've talked about today. Use the HESI. Think about these things in different ways and get out there and be involved. Because it is only through our actions as vessel of Ma'at that these things will actually come back into balance. Crush Isfet under your foot. Wehen Isfet. Mentu'ah. Seruj Ma'at. With that, I want to say the divine force in me breeds a divine force in you. Thank you so much for being part of Kemetic Legacy today. And Kemetic Legacy today, of Kemetic Ascension today. Kemetic Legacy today was a television show that we aired 100 episodes of. Thank you for being part of Kemetic Ascension today. Please let us go to our final affirmation. Anika, would you like to lead us?
Sure. I think it's important for everyone to understand how distraught we are as well. You know, sometimes people assume that priests are able to rise above this to a point where it doesn't affect us the same way, but this has been very, very difficult on so many levels. I have had to talk about this topic daily and, you know, dealing with it in terms of how to help my students grapple with what's going on. You know, I work with rising medical students who are trying to be physicians, and they are wondering if what they're doing is in vain. You know, they go into the emergency rooms and all they see are people like us, and it's frustrating, it's exhausting, it's devastating, and it's just too much. And I've tried to offer as much as I can to them to help them continue on their path because they can't get distracted. We need people who look like us to work with us, to be there to heal us. We can't continue to go and assume the people who are destroying us are going to be the ones to heal us. It doesn't work that way. So, it has been challenging for the two of us. We've had the very difficult conversations for the past few weeks. We've cried, we've yelled, we've shouted. It's gotten to a point where we're doing all that we can, and we are asking for the support of the community to do all that you can, because we can't do it alone. And especially now that we've been isolated in our homes, it makes it even that much more challenging because we can't get the word out the way we need to about what needs to happen in our communities. So we're using our platform here to be able to say to you, you've got to fight, you've got to speak, you've got to say something, you've got to teach your children how to deal with this, you've got to be safe, but you have to do something. There's no way you can sit there and not do anything. And I know that it's scary to go out there knowing that there's still a virus that we're attacking. Wear your masks, but do something. Say something. You can't just sit there. And I know that this is going to be a topic that some people disagree with. I'm going to say it anyway. Voting is part of the battle. It's not the whole battle. It's not the only solution. It won't be the thing that saves us all by itself. But you have to have several tools in your toolbox. You got to go out there and vote. Because those of you who say, I don't like any candidate and don't vote, guess what? The people who are staunch Trump supporters are going out there and they're voting for him, and he's going to win because we choose to do nothing.
And his supporters will support him regardless of what happens.
He can do it. He's already told you he will go out there, he can shoot somebody, he can kill somebody on Fifth Avenue.
And not lose a vote.
Not lose a vote. So even if you think it's not going to work, it's better than not doing anything. But because when you don't vote, you're giving your vote to Trump. That's just purely what it is. And I know people want to argue about whether that's right or wrong. But if you tell me that you're not voting, then to me that means you support Trump because that's who's going to end up in office. Right. You got to do something. And even if you think your vote doesn't matter, how does it hurt you if you do?
By the way, the people that say that are people who are not regular voters, because you should know that you're voting for more than the presidency. You're voting for people who are local on the ballot as well. You should know that as we argue with the police, mayors usually are the ones that select police captains. The chief of the police department is usually selected by the mayor. So some of these things we could move this actually effort towards justice for black people forward if we had control of the places that we live in. We don't necessarily have control of the place that we live in, and that's part of the problem.
I'm just saying it doesn't hurt to vote. What happens if you vote? Nothing's going to happen. Some who aren't going to come bashing through your door. You have a right to vote. We fought and died for the right to vote. Don't insult your ancestors who died for this by saying that you won't honor the reason that they fought for it. So please, I'm just asking that you have to go out and do something, or else you are allowing this to happen. You are a part of the problem.
Right.
So again, we're frustrated, we're angry, we're trying to find any solution out there possible to move this, to keep it going. And I hope they continue protesting for as long as they possibly can, because there's so much that needs to be changed, and it's the only way to make it happen. You got to do something, get up and move. I want to thank those of you who already made donations. I saw donations coming in while I was on the streaming system. I know some people sent theirs in before Ascension began. Thank you so much. Please continue to donate, and you can do that through shrineofma'at.org/events. That's a PayPal account, or you can just go straight to PayPal and send it to the Shrine of Ma'at address on PayPal. If you're using Cash App, then you can just do $Shrine of Ma'at. That's our tag on Cash App. So please continue to make donations. And also donate to your local agencies that are helping to support this fight. They need the funds as well. So I'm going to close off with one of my favorite affirmations, and that's Rupu Nuku. So please stand in the pose of adoration with me and repeat after me. Rupu Nuku.
Rupu Nuku.
Amiku.
Amiku.
Kema.
Kemam,
Keperu,
Keperu,
and Unter,
and Unter,
Hayu.
Hayu.
I am that I am.
I am that I am.
A shining being.
A shining being.
Dwelling in the light.
Dwelling in the light
of the Most High.
of the Most High.
Twa Winter.
Twa Winter.
Thank you to Divine.
Thank you to the Creator.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in today. And go out there and do something.
Yes. Uncle Jasaneb, Uncle Ma'at. Please enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the work that we must be included in. As I hear helicopters above, I don't think you can hear that. But enjoy the movement towards Ma'at. That's what we should be doing. We'll speak to you soon. Shemaratep. Go forth in peace.